The cry of an unwanted soul. Cold winter night. The city is asleep, but in a dark alley behind a rundown factory, a man stands under the flickering streetlight, his face hidden under the shadow of his worn-out cap. In his arms, a newborn baby girl cries, her tiny hands reaching for warmth that he refuses to provide. With a heavy sigh, the man looks around nervously before stepping toward a rusty dumpster. His hands tremble, not from guilt but from fear of being caught. "This is where you belong," he mutters coldly before placing the fragile infant inside the garbage pile. A gust of wind howls as if the universe itself is enraged by his actions. But the man doesn't look back. He shoves his hands into his pockets and disappears into the darkness, leaving the helpless child to fate. Little did he know, fate was already watching. Miles away, in the grand penthouse of the city's most powerful billionaire, Alexander Blackwood, silence reigns. He sits alone in his vast study, surrounded by wealth but burdened with an unfulfilled heart. Despite having everything, power, influence, and empire, he lacks the one thing he desires most, a child of his own. Years of medical treatments, countless disappointments, and a failed marriage have left him broken. As he stares at the city lights, an unusual restlessness tugs at his heart. Something is calling him. Without understanding why, he grabs his coat and heads out into the night. Alexander's luxury car glides through the empty streets when, suddenly, he spots something unusual near a dumpster, a tiny bundle, barely moving. His heart clenches. He stops the car, stepping out into the cold. As he approaches, the soft cries of an infant pierce the air. A baby girl abandoned like trash, her skin pale, her lips trembling. For a moment, Alexander stands frozen. Why does this sight feel so painfully familiar? Memories of his own past, growing up in an orphanage, unwanted, unloved, flash through his mind. His decision is instant. Carefully, he lifts the baby in his arms, wrapping her in his coat. She stops crying, as if knowing she is safe now. With a silent vow, he whispers, "From this moment on, you are mine." And just like that, a girl who was thrown away by her own blood is claimed by one of the most powerful men in the world. Years pass. The abandoned girl, now named Eleanor Blackwood, grows up in wealth, intelligence, and grace. Under Alexander's guidance, she becomes a woman of power and determination. She learns business, strategy, and leadership. Her father, the man who once found her in the garbage, prepares her to take over his empire. But Eleanor is more than just a billionaire's daughter. She carries a fire within her, a hunger to prove herself, a destiny bigger than anyone could imagine. At 25, Eleanor becomes the CEO of Blackwood Enterprises, the very company that rules the corporate world. But fate isn't done with its surprises yet. One evening, as she walks into the company's manufacturing sector for an inspection, her sharp gaze lands on a familiar face. An old man, frail and tired, wearing a worker's uniform, scrubbing the floors. Eleanor's heart pounds. It's him. The man who threw her away like trash. Her father. The one who gave her life. And then abandoned it. She takes a deep breath, her emotions in turmoil. Does he recognize her? Would he even care if he did? The past has returned, but this time Eleanor is no longer the helpless baby he discarded. She is the queen of this empire, and he is nothing but a nameless worker beneath her feet. Eleanor stands frozen, her breath catching in her throat. The factory's bright lights hum above, but all she can hear is the sound of her own heart pounding. The man scrubbing the floor, her biological father, is hunched over, his shoulders frail, his movements slow. He has no idea that the woman standing before him is the same child he had abandoned years ago. A rush of emotions, anger, pain, disbelief, clashes within her. Does he even remember me? Does he regret it? Her hands clench into fists. The powerful CEO she has become wants to ignore him, to walk away like he never existed. But the abandoned child inside her craves answers. Before she can speak, her assistant, Daniel, steps beside her. His voice is calm but firm. Ma'am, shall I have him removed from the company? Eleanor hesitates. Oh, that would be too easy. Not yet, she murmurs, her voice carrying a quiet storm. Let's see if fate brings him to me on its own. As she turns away, her father lifts his head slightly. For a split second, their eyes meet, but there is no recognition in his gaze. Just exhaustion. Eleanor's heart twists, but she steels herself. One day he will know exactly who I am. Later that night, Eleanor sits in her glass-walled penthouse, a glass of wine untouched in her hands. She stares at the city lights, lost in thought. A soft knock at the door breaks her trance. Daniel enters, holding an elegant black envelope. His expression is unreadable. This just arrived, ma'am. It's from the royal house of Alzaria. Eleanor arches a brow. A royal house. Daniel nods. It's an invitation from Prince Raphael Alzari himself. Her fingers tighten around the envelope. Why would a prince be interested in her? She slowly opens the letter, scanning its contents. The words make her pulse quicken. I have watched your rise, Eleanor Blackwood. Your strength intrigues me. I wish to meet you. Let's see if fate intends for our paths to cross. A smirk tugs at her lips. Fate, huh? For the first time in a long while, Eleanor feels something unexpected. Curiosity. The next evening, Eleanor arrives at a 5-star rooftop restaurant reserved exclusively for her meeting. The night air is crisp, and the city stretches below like a sea of lights. As she steps forward, she sees him, Prince Raphael Alzari, dressed in a tailored black suit. His presence commands the room without effort. His sharp jawline, intense emerald eyes, and confident smirk make it impossible to look away. When their eyes meet, something shifts in the air. Eleanor is used to powerful men, CEOs, billionaires, politicians, but Raphael is different. There's a quiet intensity about him, as if he's already figured her out before she's spoken a single word. You're more stunning in person, he says smoothly, pulling out a chair for her. Eleanor raises an eyebrow but sits. Flattery. I expected more from a prince. Raphael chuckles, leaning forward slightly. Oh, I don't waste my time with flattery, Eleanor. I get straight to the point. His gaze darkens slightly, turning serious. And right now my point is this. I want you to be mine. Eleanor stills. What? She narrows her eyes. Excuse me. Raphael smirks. I don't believe in coincidences, Eleanor. You and we were meant to meet. And I'm not in the habit of letting go of what's meant to be mine. Her heart pounds, but she keeps her expression unreadable. This man. He's dangerous in a way she's never encountered before. And for the first time in her life, she wonders if fate is playing a game bigger than she imagined. The night air is crisp, filled with the soft hum of music and murmured conversations. The rooftop restaurant is bathed in golden candlelight, the city skyline stretching endlessly behind them. Eleanor swirls the red wine in her glass, watching Prince Raphael Alzari with sharp, unreadable eyes. His confidence doesn't waver under her scrutiny. If anything, he seems to enjoy it. You're bold, she finally says, setting the glass down. You barely know me, and yet you say you want me to be yours. Raphael smirks, leaning forward slightly. I know enough. I know you're strong, ruthless when necessary, and that you don't let anyone control you. I know you've built an empire despite the world trying to break you. He pauses, his emerald eyes darkening. And I know I'm the only man who might be able to match your fire. Eleanor exhales slowly, suppressing the shiver that runs down her spine. Dangerous. This man is dangerous. Not in the way men in business are, but in the way that makes hearts surrender before they even realize it. She tilts her head, a smirk of her own forming. And if I don't want to be yours? Raphael leans back, watching her with the patience of a predator who knows the hunt has only just begun. Then that's the game, isn't it? The tension between them is electric. It's not just attraction. It's a battle of power, of dominance, of fate deciding who will break first. Shall we dance? Raphael finally asks, offering his hand. For a moment, Eleanor considers rejecting him, but then she remembers who she is. She doesn't back down. Not from challenges. Not from powerful men who think they can claim her. She takes his hand. The music swells. And the game begins. Hours later, Eleanor returns to her penthouse, her mind still tangled with thoughts of Raphael. Why did he choose her? Why now? She steps onto her balcony, the city lights below stretching endlessly. The wind is cool against her skin, but inside she's burning. Her phone buzzes. Text. Unknown number. I meant what I said. I always get what I want. A slow smile curves on Eleanor's lips. Let's see about that, Prince. Just as she sets the phone down, a knock sounds at her door. Frowning, she strides toward it and opens it, only to freeze. Standing there, shifting awkwardly in his worn-out worker's uniform, is her father. Excuse me, ma'am," he stammers, eyes low, hands wringing together. I just wanted to ask if there were any extra shifts available. I could use the money." Eleanor doesn't move. The past slams into her with brutal force. He still doesn't recognize her. He's standing in front of the daughter he threw away like garbage, and yet to him, she's just another powerful CEO who holds his fate in her hands. Her breath catches. The abandoned child inside her wants to scream. But the CEO she has become. She only lifts her chin and asks, "And why should I care about your struggles?" Her father flinches at her cold tone. Eleanor waits for an answer, her pulse hammering. Does he deserve mercy? Or does she make him suffer the way she did? For the first time in her life, she is holding the power. And she's not sure what to do with it. Eleanor stands still, her heart pounding in her chest. Her father, the man who had thrown her away like trash, is standing right in front of her, begging for work. He doesn't know who she is. A part of her wants to scream, to make him suffer the way she did. To tell him exactly who she is, to watch the color drain from his face. But she doesn't. Not yet. She crosses her arms, her expression unreadable. "Why should I care about your struggles?" Her father swallows hard, looking down at the floor like a broken man. I just need a chance. My daughter. I lost her a long time ago. I wasn't a good father." His voice cracks. "I regret it every day." Eleanor's breath catches. Is he lying? Or does he truly regret abandoning her? The war inside her rages. Revenge or mercy? Power or forgiveness? Without another word, she steps back, allowing the door to close slowly. She isn't ready to decide. Not yet. The next morning, Eleanor's assistant, Daniel, enters her office with a black envelope. "Another message from Prince Raphael," he says, placing it on her desk. Eleanor exhales sharply, unfolding the letter. "Eleanor, you intrigue me. But I don't chase. Invite. The Royal Masquerade Ball, Alzaria Palace. Come if you're ready for something beyond power. Destiny." Her lips press together. Challenge. She picks up the invitation, running her fingers over the golden royal crest. She should ignore him. She should stay away. And yet, she finds herself wanting to go. The grand Alzaria Palace is illuminated like a dream. Chandeliers glisten above a ballroom filled with masked figures, dressed in the most luxurious gowns and suits. The air is thick with mystery, elegance, and the scent of expensive champagne. Eleanor steps inside, wearing a black and gold embroidered gown, a delicate lace mask covering her piercing eyes. She moves with grace, but inside her heart races. Then she feels him before she even sees him. A familiar, intoxicating presence. She turns and there he is. Prince Raphael Alzari, dressed in a sharp black tuxedo with a dark emerald mask. He stands with effortless power. His eyes locked onto hers like a predator who has found his prey. He doesn't say a word. He simply extends his hand. For a moment, Eleanor hesitates. But then, as if drawn by an invisible force, she places her hand in his. The game continues. As they glide across the dance floor, the world fades around them. The music, the people, it's just them. You came, Raphael murmurs, his grip firm yet gentle. You expected me to. Eleanor counters, her voice steady. His smirk is barely visible beneath his mask. I knew you wouldn't be able to resist. Eleanor tilts her head. And why is that? Raphael leans in, his breath warm against her ear. Because power recognizes power. And we both know this isn't just a game. Her pulse quickens. For the first time in a long time, Eleanor feels something dangerous. Something that isn't just about control or revenge. It's fate. And it's terrifying. As the dance slows, Eleanor feels Raphael's hand tighten ever so slightly around hers. His emerald eyes, filled with unreadable intensity, never leave her face. You play a dangerous game, Eleanor, he murmurs, his voice low and smooth. Eleanor tilts her head, her lips curving in a knowing smirk. And you enjoy it, don't you? Raphael chuckles, a dark sound filled with amusement. More than I should. He leans in closer, his breath warm against her skin. But let me warn you, if you enter my world, there's no turning back. For the first time in years, Eleanor feels something dangerous clawing at her chest. Not fear, not anger, but something deeper. Something she doesn't want to name. She steps back slightly, breaking the spell. Then maybe it's you who should be careful, Prince. Because I never lose. Raphael's smirk remains, but there's a flicker of something else in his gaze, respect. Maybe even admiration. Their game has just begun. As Eleanor walks toward the palace balcony, catching her breath from the intensity of the dance, she hears a sharp, condescending voice behind her. You don't belong here. Eleanor turns, her expression calm yet calculating. Standing before her is Lady Vivian Alzari, Raphael's distant cousin and a well-known socialite. Dressed in a shimmering silver gown. Her icy blue eyes are filled with thinly veiled contempt. You think a woman like you can hold a prince's attention? Vivian sneers. You're nothing but a businesswoman. Power-hungry and cold. Do you really believe Raphael will ever choose you over someone with royal blood? Eleanor doesn't flinch. She simply tilts her head, amusement flickering in her dark eyes. Interesting, she muses. You seem quite confident for someone who's obviously afraid. Vivian's face twists in irritation. Afraid? Eleanor steps forward, lowering her voice. Yes, because if you were truly secure in your position, you wouldn't be standing here, wasting your time trying to intimidate me. She leans in just slightly. You would already know you've lost. Vivian's hands clench into fists, her perfectly composed mask cracking just slightly. Eleanor smirks and turns away, leaving Vivian standing there, seething in silent rage. Later that night, back in her penthouse, Eleanor stands by the window, looking out at the city skyline. The golden lights stretch endlessly, but her mind is tangled with thoughts of Raphael, of his warning, of what it would mean to let him in. Then her phone buzzes. She expects it to be Raphael. Instead, it's a blocked number. Frowning, she hesitates before answering. A distorted voice comes through the speaker, sending a shiver down her spine. You don't belong with him. Eleanor's grip tightens on the phone. Who is this? Silence. Then the voice whispers. Stay away from the prince, or you'll regret it. The line goes dead. For the first time in a long time, Eleanor feels something she hasn't felt in years. Real danger. And for the first time in her life, she doesn't know if she should fight back or run. Eleanor sits motionless in her penthouse, the city lights stretching endlessly beyond her glass windows. The phone call replays in her mind. Stay away from the prince, or you'll regret it. Her grip tightens around her phone. Who would dare threaten her? Just then, a soft chime echoes in the room. A new message appears on her screen. Unknown number. You don't know who you're dealing with, Eleanor Blackwood. Walk away before it's too late. Her heart pounds, but she forces herself to stay calm. Instead of fear, a slow, dangerous smile spreads across her lips. She doesn't walk away. She never does. Typing swiftly, she replies. Then maybe you should introduce yourself before I decide if you're worth my time. For a moment there's silence. Then the screen flickers. Message deleted. Number unreachable. Whoever this is, they don't want to be found. But they've underestimated her. Eleanor Blackwood always finds her enemies. The next morning, Eleanor steps into her office, her mind still clouded with last night's mystery. But as soon as she enters, Daniel, her assistant, rushes toward her. Miss Blackwood, a personal invitation just arrived. On her desk lies a midnight blue envelope with gold-foiled initials. R.A. Prince Raphael. She exhales slowly, unfolding the card. Eleanor, I have something to discuss. Something important. Meet me tonight. My estate. No masks, no games. Her pulse quickens. What does he know? And why is he suddenly so serious? For a second, doubt flickers in her mind. But just as quickly, she pushes it away. She's going. Because whatever's happening isn't just a game anymore. That night, a sleek black car pulls through towering iron gates, leading Eleanor to Prince Raphael's private estate. The mansion is unlike the royal palace. Darker, quieter, hidden from the world. The sky is stormy, the wind brushing through the towering trees surrounding the estate. As she steps out, Raphael himself is waiting for her at the entrance. Gone is his usual arrogance. Tonight he looks different, serious, watchful. Come inside, he says simply, holding the door open. She follows, her heels clicking softly against the polished marble floors. The atmosphere inside is heavy, the dim lighting casting long shadows across the walls. I didn't call you here just for pleasure, Raphael says finally, leading her to a study filled with old books and ancient maps. Someone is watching you, Eleanor. And it's not just me. Her body tenses. You know something. Raphael looks at her, his emerald eyes darkening. Not just something. Everything. Eleanor's breath catches. What has she walked into? Eleanor's fingers hover over the open file on Raphael's desk. The dim golden lamp flickers, casting long shadows around them. Inside the file, she sees photographs, newspaper clippings, and old documents, some with redacted text. One name catches her eye. Blackwood. Her blood turns cold. Her last name. She lifts her gaze to Raphael, who watches her with unreadable intensity. What is this? Her voice is controlled, but her heart pounds. Raphael exhales, leaning closer. Proof that someone has been tracking you, Eleanor. Long before you even became CEO. Her fingers tighten around the pages. There are surveillance images of her from years ago, before she had power, before she had a name. Even as a child in the orphanage. Someone has been watching her since the beginning. But why? Eleanor's mind races, but Raphael interrupts her thoughts. This is bigger than just business, Eleanor. It's not just about your company. It's about who you are. A chilling realization creeps over her. This isn't about her wealth or power. It's about her past. And the one person who might have answers is the father who abandoned her. The next day, Eleanor walks through the steel corridors of Blackwood Enterprises, her heels clicking in perfect rhythm. She doesn't stop until she reaches the factory level, where workers move in controlled chaos. And there, mopping the floor, wearing a faded uniform, is the man who once threw her away. Arthur Blackwood. For years, she had built an empire, never expecting to see him again. But fate is cruel. Arthur looks up, his tired eyes meeting hers. Recognition flashes, then fear. He drops the mop, his hands shaking. Eleanor. She tilts her head, lips curving in a slow, humorless smile. Surprised to see me, father? The entire floor seems to freeze. Workers exchange glances, sensing the storm in the air. Arthur stumbles back. I didn't know. Eleanor steps closer, her voice smooth as silk but laced with ice. Didn't know what? That the daughter you threw away would one day own the empire you clean floors in. He swallows hard. It wasn't my choice. Eleanor's patience snaps. She slams a file onto the table beside them. the same file Raphael gave her. I have proof that someone has been watching me since I was a child, she says coldly. And you? You are the only link to my past. Arthur's face turns pale. His eyes dart around as if expecting someone or something to silence him. Eleanor notices the fear. He knows something. She leans in, her voice low. Who was watching me, Arthur? Her father hesitates, then his lips part. But before he can speak, a loud crash erupts behind them. The factory doors slam open. A group of men in black suits enter, their expressions unreadable. One of them steps forward. He holds an envelope. Miss Blackwood, he says in a smooth but firm voice. You are formally invited to meet His Royal Majesty, King Alzari. Eleanor stills. The king. Why would Raphael's father, the most powerful man in the country, want to see her? Her father grips her wrist suddenly, his eyes wide with pure terror. Don't go, he whispers. You have no idea what you're walking into. But Eleanor, she simply smirks, because she never runs. Not anymore. Eleanor steps into the grand palace, her heels clicking against the gleaming marble floors. Massive chandeliers hang above, casting golden light on the intricate royal decor. At the far end of the hall, King Alzari waits. His presence is overwhelming, powerful, commanding. His sharp eyes assess her, searching for weakness. Beside him stands Prince Raphael, his emerald gaze locked on Eleanor, unreadable yet protective. King Alzari speaks first. Do you know why you're here? Eleanor lifts her chin. I assume this is about your son. The king smirks, but his eyes remain cold. This is about you. He gestures toward a gold-embossed folder on the table. Eleanor steps forward and opens it. Her breath catches. Inside are documents proving her birthright, but not as Arthur Blackwood's daughter. Whoa. These records say she is the missing granddaughter of a powerful royal family, a family the Alzaris once tried to destroy. A forgotten heiress. A girl thrown away, left to die. You are a threat to the throne, the king says coolly. Your bloodline is a curse to this monarchy. Raphael steps forward, his voice sharp. That's enough, father. But the king ignores him. If you stay in my son's life, you will face consequences beyond your imagination. Eleanor slowly closes the folder. When she looks up, her eyes are steely, unshaken. I built my own empire from nothing, she says. And I will not be erased just because you're afraid of what I might become. The king's lips press into a thin line. Then you leave me no choice. Guards step forward. But before they can reach Eleanor, Raphael moves. With a swift, commanding voice he declares, if you banish her, then I walk away from this throne. A stunned silence falls over the room. King Alzari's expression darkens. You would give up your birthright for her? Raphael's emerald eyes never waver. I would give up everything for her. For the first time in her life, Eleanor feels something she never expected. True, undeniable love. Days later, the headlines shake the nation. Prince Raphael abdicates the throne for love. Eleanor Blackwood declares war on her enemies. The palace loses a prince, but Eleanor gains something greater. A partner who stands beside her, not above her. With Raphael by her side, she expands her empire beyond anything the world has seen. She reclaims her true lineage, her real birthright. And when her father, Arthur Blackwood, finally confesses to his betrayal, she gives him nothing but the mercy of being forgotten. Eleanor is no longer a girl discarded in the trash. She is now the most powerful woman in the country. The grand ballroom of Eleanor and Raphael's estate is bathed in soft golden lights. The air is thick with the scent of roses and jasmine, and the world watches as the most powerful couple of their generation prepares to say, I do. Eleanor stands at the edge of the aisle, dressed in a stunning white gown that glows like moonlight. The fabric flows around her like liquid silk, every step radiating grace, power, and beauty. At the altar, Raphael waits. Gone is the reckless prince. In his place stands a man who chose love over a kingdom. A man who chose her, As Eleanor reaches him, he takes her hand, pressing a kiss to her fingers. "You changed everything," he whispers. She smiles. "We changed everything." The vows are spoken. The rings are exchanged. And as their lips meet, the world watches not just a wedding, but the union of two rulers. Eleanor Blackwood was never meant to bow to fate. She rewrote destiny itself. And this was just the beginning.